Prime Minister made a series of announcements today, among them delaying an EV mandate. It's an effort to help the auto sector, which has been turned around by American tariffs. Let's go to David Adams, President, CEO at Global Automakers of Canada. David, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So this is meant to provide relief to automakers. Do you think it will?
Well, look, it's always been debatable from the industry's perspective whether or not a zero-emission vehicle mandate was required to transition society to electrified vehicles. But I think the automotive industry is appreciative of the relief that's been provided through this announcement today. It's something that our association has been asking for, a pause and a review to ensure that if we are going to have a mandate, that the mandate is more lining up with consumer demand as opposed to arbitrarily chosen targets by government.
Okay, I want to talk to you about demand in a moment, but many of these automakers would have already pivoted, right? Invested some money, invested some resources into creating EV parts, EV lines. So this would be frustrating for them.
Well, I think the long-term trajectory for the industry has always been the transition towards electrification. I think the challenge for the industry has always been what's the time horizon, and then what tools are used by government to try and facilitate that transition. But, certainly we've already heard earlier this year about Honda pausing its $15 billion investment up in Alliston, the investment that one of my other members, Volkswagen with PowerCo, have made in St. Thomas, that is moving forward. So there's no question that this is where the industry is headed. It is just a matter of timing, and there are going to be fits and starts as we undertake or continue to undertake this transition.
So you don't think this signals a complete move away from EVs for this country?
No, I don't think so. I think, as we just talked about, the government has put forward $50 billion in terms of attracting foreign direct investment to facilitate the transition of not only the vehicle manufacturing sector to electrified vehicles, but also to take advantage of the significant natural resources that we have in Canada to pursue battery development and battery parts and components development. So I think it's a maybe a longer play strategic asset for the country to be and remain focused on the cultivation and development of the EV sector here.
Can you share what you've seen and heard as far as demand goes? Because we know there's been a softening in many different countries. I'm wondering what you have seen or heard in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, people are suggesting that it's maybe a Canadian or a North American phenomenon, but indeed, EV demand has softened around the world. It's not to say that EVs aren't growing and sales are continuing to grow. In some countries, they're growing tremendously. But I think what we've seen in Canada, especially since the federal government and the government of BC pulled back on their incentives, we've just seen a significant drop-off in the EV adoption rate. And I think the numbers at the end of May were about 7.5% of the vehicles sold were electrified vehicles. And we need to hit 20% under the existing mandate for next year, 2026. So that really doesn't compute. And I think that's why, it's we appreciate and it's reasonable for the government to be taking a good hard look at, are these targets reasonable? If they're not, how do we try and both provide some relief to the industry and also come up with some targets that make a little bit more sense and are more in line with latent consumer demand for electric vehicles.
I do want to get your insight on the market as it grows, because there is 100% tariff on Chinese EV vehicles. That was in an effort to replicate what the U.S. was doing, so sort of stand firm in North America on that. But we have been targeted in other sectors as a result. So the canola industry, China has now targeted. Where do you stand on whether or not Chinese EVs should be allowed into this country in an effort perhaps to offset what vehicle makers here aren't ready to do or maybe don't want to do if they want to stay into sort of the traditional route of vehicle making?
Right. Well, it's a good question. I think this is always the challenge with public policy making, is at the end of the day, it is a bit of a balancing act. So I think, yes, you're right. Canada tried to replicate and show support for for the United States in terms of the ban that they imposed, or the 100% tariff that they imposed on Chinese EVs. I think we instituted our own tariff in that regard. Some would say, well, we'd be able to meet the targets if we had cheaper vehicles, and those vehicles are available in China. Why don't we allow them to come here? And I think the balancing act is that we have we have an auto sector that is one of the key economic sectors of our economy. And I think the reality would be is that if we were to open the door right at this moment to Chinese vehicles, that would completely undermine our automotive sector here in Canada. And I'm not sure where we would look to find another sector such as the automotive industry with the economic contribution it makes with respect to GDP, the employment that it provides. So it's I don't think it's as easy as just saying, well, let the doors open and let cheaper vehicles in, and then we'd be able to make the targets no problem.
Got it. David Adams, I've got to leave it there with you. So thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.